Brent, thanks for joining us this afternoon.
Of course.
Brent, of course, is our senior copywriter and has written for, probably hundreds of...
Hundreds. I mean, yes. When you invited me today to talk about this topic, I was really excited because I've seen this term this word, right, that we see everywhere. I've seen it all over the place, and it's kind of lost its meaning to me. And I'm glad we can dig into this a little bit.
Absolutely. So, of course, Brent, we invited you here to talk about. I was doing some research for a few colleges, and the term affordability was really, all over the place. It was all over the website. Clearly, college is expensive. We know this. There's questions about whether is a college education worth it and so forth. But affordability was all over the webpage and all over the materials. And it just kind of seemed like this is the buzzword. And it made me thinking, maybe affordability isn't the actual challenge. Maybe the challenge is the value.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's a great point because affordability, it matters. Like it does matter. Like we understand that from the audiences that we work with, that affordability is an important thing. The problem is selling the term affordability really leaves you in a bit of a dead end.
It does. It really does.
Because if everybody's saying it, right, then it just becomes like this kind of white noise that's out there.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I mean, you can go on almost any college website in the country, and right up there they'll have, we're affordable. Well, if everyone's saying it, then it's not meaning anything anymore.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I like to kind of think of affordability as it's really a static term that kind of drives you into a bit of a dead end when you're trying to market it. There's no energy to it. Affordability, just kind of, great. That's awesome that you're affordable, and that means a lot to kids. But I think what you want to talk about a little bit is how that differs from value.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Affordability and affordable means very different things to different students. And so, we see typically community colleges and technical schools as the affordable option.
Right.
But now you've got four-year institutions, public, private, the Ivy Leagues that are touting affordability. But affordability looks a lot different at a couple $1,000s a semester to $50,000 a semester. And so I think affordability as a whole, it varies student to student.
Right. And like if something is affordable, I think sometimes that word equates to, no matter what audience you're looking at, they equate it to something being inexpensive, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes when something is inexpensive, it may then be equated to something that is cheap, right? When I was a high school teacher, I put on this, I got some funding and stuff, and we put on like this big concert, and I promoted it through the school, and it was a up and coming band. Now all the students hadn't heard of the band, but if they took a moment to look on Spotify, they'd see they were kind of an up and coming band. Well, I made the mistake of promoting it with a big poster, beautifully designed and everything, but it said free concert, right? And so when hardly any students showed up to it on that weekend, I asked them on Monday, where was everybody? Like, we talked about coming. They said we didn't want to come because it was free. I was like, why wouldn't? And they said, because in our minds, that means it wasn't any good.
Yeah.
Right. So, which I just think is like just a perfect sort of like metaphor for this idea that, like, yes, you want your education to be affordable, but as you're saying, it means different things to different people. And when we talk about what a college costs, we want to talk about what the value of it is, right? Because whereas affordability is a static term, value is very much a dynamic term, term that can be used. I'll even find myself going, how do I say, I can't say that something's affordable again. I've got to talk about the value. I've got to talk about what your money gets you, right? Students are not, and you know this, right? Students are, having worked in admissions, students are not afraid necessarily. They'll find the way sometimes to pay for something if it's worth it, right?
Yep.
So I think that's going to be a really important thing that colleges, when they're marketing, to remember in the future, is that is let's talk about the value. Let's talk about the resources you provide. Let's talk about what your money gets you.
Sure.
Right? And then you can kind of direct them to the financial aid department, have them talk scholarships and various things.
Definitely. As we talk with students, and we've had them on the podcast, and we talk with students regularly, we're on campus, and a lot of students that are looking for the 4-year experience, which typically is a lot of times what we hear with the affordability aspect of it, is they're looking for an education, yes, but they're looking for an experience.
Yeah.
And we were just both on a campus last week, and it really resonated that students are looking for this life-changing experience.
Right.
And just as you mentioned, is that when it is something that is important to them and they value it, they will find the money to do it as best they possibly can, because it is something that they desire and that they see the benefit in it.
Right.
And I think that for me, that's one of the biggest differences between value and affordability, is that the value is that they do see truly the value in earning the degree, whereas affordability, it comes off as, that I don't know, it just has this negative almost connotation to it.
Well, value is if you look them up, like value can be used as a verb, right? So I think we need to think of it in terms like it's an action thing, right? Value can be is something that is going to change as the school begins to put more emphasis on the things that students really want to experience, right?
Sure.
And you when you value something, it just means more to you, right? And that doesn't mean colleges, I'm not saying like jack up your prices and make it hard or anything. I don't mean it, because we know that that's not the answer.
Sure.
But I think when you're recruiting students and you're sending marketing messages to them, I think you really lay it on with the idea of, here are all the things you're going to get, right? Bring them in, entice them with all this stuff that is available to them, the things we know that are important to them, support and resources and the experience, as you say. And I don't think you even need to use the word like value necessarily, because I think that even that you need to be careful of using that specific word, but the sentiment of it, the I'm getting, it's the I'm getting what I'm paid for, but the positive end of that, right? I'm getting what I paid for. Like this is where my money is going. I know that there's going to be outcomes that are going to be good for me in terms of this. I value these outcomes. I value the resources that this because a value is really about benefits, right? It's what benefits you.
Yep.
And what's going to benefit the students the most. And if you just continue to pound over affordability, as I said, you're really just kind of it's just an echo chamber that it doesn't mean much to the students anymore. They will all say in surveys like affordability is the most important thing to them. So we need to talk about that for a second.
Sure.
Unpack that. So if they're saying that, right, then we know that it matters and we know that it's important to them. But as I said, every college is kind of picking up on that.
Sure.
So the colleges that are going to be smart are going to come in and say, yeah, we're an affordable college, and we can make this work for you. Here's all the things that we're going to sort of offer you, so that you can then sit down and do pro-cons list of the colleges that you're choosing,
Sure.
that you're picking from.
And I think it's interesting that, because we've seen those surveys, right?
Yeah.
Tons of times, in terms of what's important to you. And I think it's funny though that students that, typically, or if they're interested in the institution that we're with, or that we're looking at in particular, they'll say it's important, but then you go back to the website, it's splattered all across the website, but they're still not getting it. So there still is this missing link that you are not, just by putting it on the website and using that term alone, you're still not getting the point across to that student. You're missing the mark,
Right.
because they're still saying, this is what I'm looking for, and I'm not getting it from you.
Right. And I think you can even start from top of the funnel in a lot of ways, educating them on what affordability is, right? The differences between affordability and value, and talking. And we say this to our clients a lot of times, which is like in that top of funnel piece, you've got to become a resource to these kids that are and their parents, particularly with the wave of first gen students that are now coming up through colleges. You've got to position your institution as a resource for educating them on what affordability means, what does value mean. And I think if you can kind of push that message out early, then they're going to give. It's going to give the prospective students tools they need to talk to their parents about this, right? Because, of course, I mean, I've got a 13-year-old son. He's in 5 years. He's going to be 4 years, really, getting ready for college.
Sure.
And yes, affordability, it will matter to me and his mother, but, because we don't have, he wants to go to Duke or something. I'm like, I don't have Duke money. So I'm like, let's look at some of these other ones, right? And I'm going to use the same, I don't want to say argument, but the same idea when I talk to him about college. Is like, yes, here's our budget. Yeah. Right. Let's see what we can get for this budget. I don't think there's anything wrong with starting out your college search with a budget. Did you see that a lot in your,
No, granted, times were different. I feel like times are always different.
Yeah.
But when we really saw, in the heyday, students had no problems signing over for loans. I mean, this whole concept, this new generation is very price conscious. They're very budget conscious. Yeah. They are tuned in on the investment that they're making for college, and they know that it's going to cost them. They know what they're looking for. I think more so than any other previous generation. I think as time has gone on, each generation seems to build on top of it, that they understand what they're getting into a little bit more.
Yeah, there definitely is that happening today. And my friends who are still high school teachers, who I talk to pretty frequently, tell me all the time that it's not the conversations in the classroom around college are different now, right? You're going to always have your group that's always like, I'm going to college, but there's other ones that are saying, I'm not sure if it's worth it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I'm not sure if I necessarily need it right now anyway, or they're looking at different ways to do it. Nobody wants to put themselves in debt for something that's not going to show value.
Sure.
Right? And I think for clients or for colleges that we work with, we're always kind of pushing the outcome message, because you're right. Gen Z cares very much about the outcome of something, right?
Sure.
Of what is this going to get me? I don't mind paying for it. If I have the money, or even if I have to take out loans or do all the hoops to go through the scholarship stuff, or, mow extra lawns or whatever it may be, that, like, I don't mind paying for it, but I want to make sure that what I'm getting is worth it. And I would really encourage colleges to push that messaging forward.
Yep.
And do it through student voices, right? Mm-hmm. Do it through the student experiences that and I'm not talking about just little clips of testimonials that everyone puts on their websites, right? Like, I think those are good, but those also become white noise after a while too. Yep. I think if you can encourage them to talk about it through social media, I think that's great. So they're going to share it on their TikToks and their Snapchats, and they're going to share everything from the food on campus, if they don't feel like they're getting what's worth, to the experiences that they're having, to the professors and faculty who are not engaging with them and not connecting with them. They're going to talk about that stuff. So it's time, maybe start pulling together some language and videos and various things that can talk about what they are getting.
Absolutely.
And you kind of help control this conversation there a little bit.
And I think that's such an interesting perspective, one that I had not thought about until this conversation, was that we're talking a little bit, or you talked about value in terms of, what the student is getting, but you brought up an interesting point about, students that don't necessarily immediately see the value in a college education,
right?
Or they don't see, is my investment going to be worth it? So it's almost, I didn't think about this going into it, but it's almost twofold, right? You've got to prove the value to the students in terms of coming to my institution.
Right.
But then you also have to prove the value in a college education as a whole.
Yeah.
And so I kind of initially thought about just like the value from a 4-year, but it goes significantly deeper than that.
And again, that's where colleges can be a resource and talk about the value of a college education. I think that doing that early on with students and saying, here's why college matters, and here's why education is important. Because because Gen Z knows they know they're being sold to. They don't like that feeling of being marketed to. And I don't think there's anything. I think that's a great point. Is like colleges could really begin to talk about why college matters, right? And do it in a way that quietly promotes their own stuff, right? We'll switch gears a little bit. I'm gonna interview you for a second. What do you see the value in college?
Oh, gosh. I mean, obviously, getting a degree for employment and going into the job force is important.
Right.
I say this having been a theater major, which I think recently has been a little bit of their firing squad recently. I think some politicians have taken a couple shots at some of the liberal arts educations and so forth, or degrees. But personally, I mean, I went to a liberal arts institution as my alma mater, my undergraduate, and the education that I got in the classroom, while important, it was the experiences on campus at the classroom that really set it apart.
Right.
And so that student experience, really played a huge portion in what I do, who I am. I mean, again, we're talking with a school last week, and something that really resonated is they were like, I came in not broken, but I came in not really knowing who I was, and I left a whole person.
Yeah.
And I feel that is the experience that most people are looking for a college education, right? It's definitely not what I thought I was looking for in a college education. I mean, I thought, I was one that I was like, I don't need college, right? I'm gonna move to New York. I'm gonna make it big on Broadway.
You still can, Josh. You still can.
Thank you, but I doubtful. But I truly knew who I was more as a person, what I valued in my community, what I could give back in my community. In addition to, again, I got a great education, but it was just so much more of an experience. And so when I hear, especially the liberal arts, kind of get a rung through the mud a little bit, I really try to champion, my experience and what I've seen in students and seeing that transformation, because it does matter. There is value in creating good citizens in your community, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I hear you on like all of that. Like, I think that you do become kind of this whole person. I think the value also comes in how you learn to advocate for yourself, right?
Absolutely.
Like, I think that's so important.
Yeah.
Like, I most of my memories when it came to academics in college involved me learning how to ask for the things that I needed from professors or from faculty. When I didn't feel like I was understanding something, scheduling time to learn more about it. And that's all stuff that I think is so crucial to your career someday. I mean, your degree was in theater. Mine was, I was an English major with a concentration in creative writing and an emphasis in fiction writing, right? So like this three kind of things. So I didn't have big plans beyond just my English classes.
Sure.
But what I learned was how to communicate, how to advocate, how to connect with people. Those are all super valuable things that I think have pushed me forward in my career way more than learning how to write dialogue.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Which of course is important too. But I think that that's kind of an interesting take. So we've got these two things. You've got this idea that education needs to be valued, like college education needs to be valued before they even start really even deciding whether your college is a value, right?
Yep.
Like, does it matter? What matters about it? And then you can start sliding in that information about, like, particularly when it comes to the stuff we just talked about, like becoming that whole person, learning to connect with people, learning how to network with people, learning what matters in this world.
Oh, so like something I did, you kind of talked about a little bit earlier, but it kind of, I'll tout a little bit upon you and your amazing talents in terms of writing for different populations. But that's something to consider as well too, right? Who are the students that you're serving?
Yes.
And what do they value? Especially students who are coming in, whether they be 17-year-olds, whether that be a transfer student,
Graduate.
those values are different, a graduate, an adult learner. But then also your values are going to shift as you continue through college, right? My values as an incoming freshman are different than what I value.
Oh, yeah.
As a soon-to-be graduating senior. And so, again, to your point and your amazing talent is to be able to kind of say the same thing, but put it in different voices that resonate what value means to me.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And you just have to, if you're not keeping audience in mind in everything you're writing, or creating or designing or whatever it may be, because each of those different, even each of the years in high school that someone's in, things are going to change for them and what's important to them.
Sure.
You talk about graduate students, like you've got a whole other thing that you need to kind of what's important to them.
Sure.
And being able to discuss that in ways that doesn't sound like you're over salesy or pandering to them. I highly encourage, I know we do a lot of talk in this business about personas, right? And creating these personas. And I think that's really important, and I think you do need to recognize that each population that you're trying to recruit, there are tweaks that you can do in the messaging, and some of the stuff stays the same, but there are real moments where you need to zero in on what matters to them most. And I think that you can get that information by just being observant on your campus, right? Just listening to what students are saying, talk to your faculty. What is faculty saying that the students are saying, right? Like, that's a really good thing to do too. Sit down at the coffee shop on campus and just listen to them talk. I always find it fascinating to listen to Gen Z discuss things, because they use, I've talked about this in other podcasts before, they use this kind of clipped language, but it's also very insightful. And I think that it's exciting to have the opportunity to talk to them, to sell the idea, to sell the importance of college to a newer generation. Absolutely. Because just saying you're affordable just doesn't do it anymore.
No.
And I think a lot of our clients know that already. I think that a lot of colleges know that affordability is falling off the radar as far as language is concerned. Again, it matters, but as far as the language is concerned, and so I would just encourage them to push through and really have a discussion about, like we've had today, about the difference between affordability and value. Every college can say that they're affordable because it's a relative term, right? So if every college is saying they're affordable, they need to be able to prove that they're valuable.